Yeah, so I think my computer is playing up because I decided to install one more computer. So it's feeling a little, I still love you, my dear.
Good one.
Another, I just decided to install a standby computer. So I think this computer is feeling, that
Yeah.
it's not going to go anyway. Chalo. So we were actually reading this book by Dr. Batman Gilead. And in that book, he talks about using water for therapy and healing. And one of the things that he says is that most people who have asthma are not drinking enough water. In fact, all of us are dehydrated and we don't drink enough water. So that is something that we need to really be observant about as to how much water we are consuming and drinking. And this comes up in the life system also, where when you have a toxic load, you need to detoxify your system. One of the required things is to have enough water. If you're not having enough water, toxification of the body system is bound to take place. Yes, Aisha?
There's something like drinking too much water also.
Correct.
I went through one phase where I was drinking so much water that my doctor told me, what are you doing? You can't drink 4 or 5 liters.
No,
So
no,
there's
you need
some
to drink,
optimum.
approximately 3 liters, 3 to 3.5 liters of water. Of course, depending on what you're up to and what you're doing also makes a difference. Naturally, you can't have too much of water.
Yeah.
The ideal thing that they said in the life system thing was about 100 ml. Yeah, 100 ml every half an hour.
Okay.
Okay. Or 150 ml every half an hour, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 150 ml every half an hour. And no water before the meal, 1 hour before the meal and 1 hour after the meal. So that lands up, if you really drink regularly, it'll 150 to 200 ml of water, it'll land up to 3 liters of water a day. But most of us drink less than that. That's what the basic point is.
He also told me, I know how to clear so she gets what she needs and I get what I need. He talks to God and God talks to them. When I'm clear, I will see everyone as God sees them. I asked Dr. Hewlin if I could make an appointment.
Your voice is not coming well.
To see him.
Your fan is on, kya?
He talks to God and God talks to them. When I'm clear, I will see everyone as God sees them. I asked Dr. Hewlin if I could make an appointment to see him, and he said no, because the divine told him that I already had an inner knowing.
So what is he saying over here? Okay, I know how to clear so she gets what she needs and I get what I need. So when he's clearing his field, he's automatically getting what he needs because he doesn't want that vibration in his field. And as he clears his field, her field automatically clears. So she gets what she needs. And then he says, there's a very profound statement here. He talks to God and God talks to them. Right? So he sends a message to God and then God talks to that other person. He does not talk to the other person. So now if he is not talking to the other person, there is no concept or question of any kind of ego over here anymore, because he's petitioning someone else and that someone else is doing the job. So this is the same thing that happens when we are sending a reball also. We do not attach any ego to when we are using the reball. We are going into a higher state of consciousness, and from that state of consciousness, we are sending an intent. So this C1 consciousness, Niket Khetan, is not sending the reball. The Niket Khetan, which has gone into an elevated state of consciousness, is sending the reball, and there's a disconnect, technically speaking, within the field of Niket Khetan there and Niket Khetan here. So if Niket Khaitan here wants to send the reball, the effect will be totally different from the Niket Khaitan in that F10 consciousness sending the reball. So what he's saying here is I'm petitioning divinity, and then divinity does what needs to be done. And then he says that he gets that instinct, right? So it's also very much like the one breath technique that we learn in the excursion, where you are going into that expanded state of focus 12 and then getting answers for yourself. Okay, so that becomes very much like the one breath technique that we also do in the excursion workshop. Omji, you have something to say?
When you're talking about taking the water, people who have more creatinine, that means the kidney, I will get affected. So because doctors had told me to take only maximum 1.5 bottles of liter of water, or maximum 2 liters of water in a day. 2 liters is also more, but 1.5 liter. So I
Correct.
just want
So
to share with you.
this is a conflict that I have with doctors. Let's put it that way. After reading Dr. Batman Gilich's books, आप एक बार पढ़िए उनका किताब, तब आपको समझ में आएगा कि क्या हो रहा है.
No, he's a medical doctor.
Yes, he is a medical doctor.
But he may not be a kidney specialist, because I have been
Again. आप पढ़िए किताब को, फिर अपने बात करें.
Okay, no problem.
That was a beautiful confirmation for me to hear. Overall, the message I learned tonight was witnessing how Dr. Hewlin transformed the lady's energy from complaining to that of gratitude. 2. Getting to see how I judged the lady and the water. Number 3. Understanding the system he uses to clear himself and how powerful that is for all of us to use. Number 4. To remember to say thank you and I love you more often.
So again, a shift from complaining to gratitude, from the left side of the grid into the right side of the grid. Second, what am I thinking? There is no judgment. There is no kind of assumption. Now, when we look at the 4 agreements, one of the tenets over there is do not make assumptions. So whenever we are judging anything, we are automatically making assumptions, because we really do not have all the parameters or all the information about what we are judging. The other thing is that what is the system that he was using, right? So he was, again, I'm repeating, he was petitioning divinity, and then divinity was doing the work. He was not doing the work. This is very, very clear. And then remembering to operate out of gratitude ourselves. The more we can operate out of gratitude, the better off we will be. And as soon as we are in gratitude, we are operating with compassion, with love, we automatically will shift to the right side of the grid. And that is where all the magic takes place. Okay. So we are actually helping ourselves by operating in this manner. Yes, Poonam? You have to unmute.
You said divinity is providing all the answers, correct?
Yes.
But it's doing it through him. He's the medium.
So he is getting a message, right? So like when, what happens? Now that lady was blaming someone, correct? Now that created a flutter in his field. Now when he connects with divinity, whatever divinity is feeling or saying, he again feels it in his field. And he just communicates to the lady what he is feeling in his field. Are you understanding?
Through him.
Naturally, so he is being able to observe it. So because of his observation, he's just passing on the message to the other person. Right? So it's the same thing, like you've done a biofield tuning session, right? So now what happens? What do I say in biofield tuning? I am not saying anything. It's your body who's giving the message. I'm just putting it in front of you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's all, nothing more than that. So you're acting, he's acting like the interpreter. That's all.
Yes. Thank you.
I began the dinner by spontaneously explaining how I learned of the mystery therapist who healed an entire ward of mentally ill patients. I had everyone's attention. I invited people to ask questions as Dr. Hewlin and I held a public discourse, much like Socrates and Plato might have done. Only I felt more like Play-Doh than Plato.
So naturally, he was Play-Doh when he was standing in front of Dr. Hewlin.
Dr. Hewlin began by saying, people ask questions like, well, what about beliefs? What about emotions? What about that sort of stuff? I don't deal with those things. I don't deal with how come kind of crap. But you are going to ask me that. So I have to deal with it. But it's like if I reach over and I touch something and it burns me quickly, immediately I lift my hand up. So when something comes up, even before it comes up, I've already taken my hand off.
So this is beautifully put, right? So what is he saying? That I am not interested in becoming aware of any crap. So anything that puts me on the left side of the grid, I am not interested in paying attention to it. Having said that, stuff will still come up into my awareness, which I will have to notice. Now, as soon as I notice it, I will put a strategy in place. So over here, he's using an example of a hot plate, that if I put my hand on the hot plate, I will immediately raise my hand up. So the trick over here is, as soon as you feel something coming up in your field, immediately put a strategy in place so that you can transcend it, so that it doesn't affect you anymore. Okay. Now I keep using this example with people when we are doing biofield tuning, that anyone who suffers from migraine can feel the migraine coming up before it actually comes up. And again, I refer to Dr. Batman Gilich. He says that as soon as you feel it coming up, drink 2 glasses of water and the migraine may or more in most cases will not manifest. So one of the reasons that he says that the migraine is coming up is because of lack of water or dehydration. So if you hydrate yourself, then automatically that migraine will not come. So what is that? As soon as you feel something coming into your field, put the strategy in place which will eradicate it before it really gets into your system. Like, before it takes your hand up. So he says last, when something comes up, even before it comes up, I have already taken my hand off. So the moment I perceive it, I put the strategy in place so that it doesn't come up in my field at all. And again, I'm speaking from experience. The more you be in this system, the more you will start to notice things that you need to notice and not notice things or ignore things that you do not need to notice. You will find that happening. In most cases, I would say the first thing that will drop off is hearing the news and reading newspapers. Because if you pick up a newspaper, 90% of it is crap, all negative stuff, all depleting stuff in the newspapers. So why should I even bring it into my awareness when it is really not affecting me? Why should I even bother?
It's like before I walked into this room is sacred. Before I walked in, I made sure that I talked to the room. I asked the room its name because it has a name. Then I said to the room, "Is it okay for me to come into the room?" The room said, "Okay, you can come in." But let's say the room said, "No, you're kind of, excuse the language, crappy." So then I would get to look at myself and do what I need to do, so that when I come in as you hear that old phrase about physicians, heal thyself. So I want to make sure that I want to come in healed, problem free, at least for a moment.
So, so this is again something that we had already experienced in this book only, that first he went to the room and communicated with the room. So now all inanimate objects also have a conscious awareness. So you ask them, if you're going to go into anyone's house, into anyone's home, or you want to start a conversation with someone, you will ask them, would you like to have a conversation, right? So in the same way, we need to ask ourselves, where would we like to be? Now, if something comes up in that conversation, or when I'm entering a place, or when I'm seeing something, and something starts to flutter in my field, I treat it as an opportunity, not a threat. That, yes, now I have an opportunity to clear myself of this thing that is coming up in my field, so that I can become problem free for that moment in time. Shivamla,
I interrupted him to set the stage for everyone. I wanted everyone to know who Dr. Hewlin was and why we were there. What we were doing was spontaneous and free form. I advised everyone to relax and stay open. With Dr. Hewlin, you never know what will be said or done.
so now what is he saying over here? Very clearly that Dr. Hewlin goes with the flow. He doesn't know what he's going to do next. So this is very much like what Reverend Bill said, right? He never plans on what he's going to do, he just does it. And it all, most of the time, it turns out to be all right. Why? Because they are so connected with divinity. They are so connected with the flow that whatever they are doing is with the flow. So the universe is what they are doing is what the universe wants. So they have equated their will with the universal will. So they can do what they want because they are always feeling the feel of what they need to do at that point. So they are working with inspiration. They are working as directed. They are not applying their free will to such an extent that they're only operating from this small guy. They are operating with the big guy, right? So they have a higher field of perception in which they are operating, which will not coincide or correlate with the small sense of perception that normal people like us operate.
He asked everyone why someone would get breast cancer. No one could answer, neither could he. He pointed out that there are millions of bits of information floating around at any moment, but we aren't aware of more than maybe 20 bits at one time. It was a recurring theme with him, but it was the essence of his message. We don't have a clue.
So again, coming back to the same premise that he said before, that with our conscious mind, the small guy, we are only being able to perceive 20 bits or 40 bits of information. This big guy is being able to perceive to 20 million bits or 40 million bits of information in the same time that this guy is uh, uh, being able to perceive that one bit of information, right? So the ratio is 1:1 million. So when the ratio is 1:1 million, how can we even, I mean, even imagine that we could actually have a clue as to what is really happening? It is literally impossible.
Science has no certainty of what's going on in our life. He explained. Even mathematics is unclear because of zero. In the end of Charles Safe's book, Zero, the biography of a dangerous idea, the author concludes, all the scientists know is that cosmos was spawned from nothing and will return to nothing from whence it came. The universe begins and ends with zero.
So, so this is the concept, right? Shunya. Everything came out of Shunya and everything will go back into Shunya. Now in biogeometry, there's a wonderful concept which says that everything that is manifested has a center, and that center is from where it manifests, and that center is zero. So now, whenever the periphery of anything connects with that zero, a energy field is generated, which is sacred. So any sacred space, like a temple or any place which has a high energy field, has that sacred energy. Now they've labeled it and called it BG3 energy. Now in the OB workshop yesterday, we did a small experiment. We diverted a little bit, and this stuff is covered in the Vastu workshop, and we are going to now start paying more attention in the Vastu workshop to this kind of a thing, where when you rotate something in space, there is a point which comes where it connects with the zero and it is perceptible. You will feel the energy shift in the environment, and all the people who were there in the OBE workshop, when we were shifting, rotating that thing and I got BG3 energy in it, the breathing pattern changed. Okay. I don't know how many, was anyone here in the OBE program who's here right now?
Yes, Bhaiya.
Yeah, Snehbhabi, can you share what you experienced?
We saw Bhaiya.
Yeah, when I rotated that puck, na,
Yeah.
can you
You
share
could
that
actually
experience?
see it rotating. When Bhaiya was rotating, the whole thing was rotating.
No, but what
And when-
happened to you? You
Oh
made a
my God,
statement.
we had peace of mind when it was going round and round. When it was straight, we all froze actually.
So you made a statement that I'm feeling breathless
Yes,
when I
it
put
was
it
very
out of sync.
suffocating. I said
Yes,
that.
you said it became suffocating, right? So can everyone understand this? When the field clears, then automatically our physiology also starts to work better. And the amazing part is they were on screen and I was showing it to them on screen and it affected them. In spite of the fact that I was doing it at my office over here and they were sitting in their house, but it affected their breathing while they were paying attention to that thing over here. Have you all got what I'm saying?
Yes.
Has any? Anyway, this stuff is really covered in the Vastu workshop. Okay, but the point what I'm making is that everything comes out of that zero, and the more connected you are to the zero, the more in harmony you're going to be.
Dr. Hewlin went on to say, so I have taken the universe of my mind back to zero. No data on it. You hear different kinds of ways of putting it. Void, emptiness, purity. I don't care what you call it. My mind is back to zero now. No matter what is coming up, even when I am not even aware of it, the process I'm going to talk about is constant, incessant zeroing so that I can be at zero.
So what is he meaning by this statement, right? That he has no thought. His mind is always at a stillness. So whatever comes in, he feels it. but it is immediately cleared, bringing him back into zero. So he's in a state of infinite stillness within himself. No matter whatever comes up in his awareness, it is constantly being cleaned to bring him back into zero. Okay. So this is an amazing state of consciousness that all of us can actually achieve, being in that state of zero.
I could see most people were riveted by Dr. Hewlin, but some were like me, still in the dark. But Dr. Hewlin kept going, saying, what happens is that only when your mind is at zero can creation take place, and it's called inspire. In Hawaiian, this inspire is called Ha.
So again, when you are looking at this, right, when there is too much going on in our head, there is no clarity of thought, there is no clarity of vision. So if I don't have clarity of thought and vision, how can I create something? It is literally impossible. The other fact is that everything manifests out of a state of infinity or zero. So where there is zero, there is infinity. So there is everything and nothing. So anything that manifests has to manifest from that state. It cannot manifest from any other state. And in that state is where you get inspired to do whatever you are doing. So we think that we are thinking and doing, but actually, where did that thought to do come from? It always comes from below the line, from the big guy, not from the small guy. So the less you start operating from the small guy and the more you connect with the big guy, the more connected you will be with the universal consciousness and more in the flow. So where things will start to happen rather than you making them happen. So shifting from effortfulness to effortlessness. That is where all creation takes place. So again, when we keep saying that if you and all manifestation takes place only from the right side of the grid, because if you're on the left side of the grid, you cannot be in the state of zero. You cannot be in that state where you have the creative force working in you to be able to create something.
So if you've ever been to Hawaii, the word Ha means inspiration, Y is water, and I is the divine. Hawaii is the breath and the water of the divine. This is what the word Hawaii is. The word Hawaii itself is a cleaning process. So when I am anywhere and I check, I say, for example, before I go into the room, what is it that I need to clear that I don't know? I have no idea what's going on. So what is it? So if I apply a cleaning process that is called Hawaii, it will get data that I am not even aware of and take me back to zero.
So what is he saying over here? The process works even if you don't know what is happening. The point is to ask the right question. The moment we ask the right question and apply the right tool, the issue that is there automatically starts to get cleared. So we need to put ourselves into that state of mind all the time, right? So whenever we start going anything, when we start going anywhere, doing anything, thinking of anything, we need to start becoming aware as to where is it coming from? What is it that I need to do about it so that I retain the clarity in my system? So it's like defragmenting a drive. You know, you have a hard drive in the computer, right? Now, if the data is very fragmented, it takes more time to retrieve the data, or the data may get lost also. So we need to constantly defragment ourselves and clear ourselves of anything that is not required. Okay, so just think about it as an analogy of the hard disk of a computer. If you have too much of crap in the hard disk, it will create a problem in the functioning of the hard disk. In a similar way, if we have too much of crap in our conscious awareness, it's going to create a problem in the way that you are functioning. So once I start becoming aware of this process, it goes into auto clean mode. Automatically things start get cleaning, provided I ask the right question.
Only at zero. And something that you need to realize is the mind can only serve two masters, one at a time. Either it will serve whatever is going on in your mind, or it will serve inspiration. This other stuff is called memory.
So again, we keep repeating, right, that you cannot do two things at the same time. So either you will operate out of inspiration or you will operate out of memory. So when you are operating out of memory, you're operating from this guy. When you are operating from inspiration, you're operating from this guy. Now it depends on us as to what and where do we want to operate from.
This was getting even more fascinating. From there, Dr. Hewlin went even deeper. Divine intelligence is where all of this inspiration comes from, and it's in you. It's not out there anywhere. You don't have to go over there. You don't have to go over there. You don't have to seek anybody out. It's already in you. The next level here is called the superconscious. That's simple enough. Hawaiians call this the Omakua, or O means across all time and space, and Makua means Holy Spirit or a God, which means that there is a part of you that is timeless and there's a part of you that has no bounds. That part of you knows exactly what is going on.
So the divine intelligence is in you. Now you could call it the Atma, you could call it the soul, you could call it whatever. We are all connected to that divinity. We are all connected to that divine entity. And even in the OBE program, William Bullman clearly says that an out-of-body experience, which we think is out of our body, is actually an experience which is going inwards. And the more profoundly that we can connect to that essence of ourselves, which is right inside us, the more in sync with the universal consciousness we are going to become. And when we are going into these expanded states of consciousness, this is something I keep repeating, we are going into states of consciousness where there is no time and there is no space. So he says over here, is a timeless, and there is a part of you that knows no boundary. So there is no space and there is no time. So we are going into these expanded states. And when we start operating from there, then everything automatically starts to happen. We start operating from inspiration rather than from ego, from the small guy.
Then you have the conscious mind. Hawaiians call it Uhane. Then you have the subconscious. The Hawaiians call it Unhipili. So one of the most important things to be aware is to question, who am I? So what we are saying, what I am sharing with you, is that your identity consists of these elements of mind. Now it is important for you to know that this mind is empty. So this mind is zero. So who are you? You are a divine being that's zero. So why would you want to be zero? When you are zero, everything is available. Everything. So now that means that you are created in the image of the divine. I'm going to be clear about this because I hear certain things, but I want you to be cleared by the divine.
So very clearly he is saying that we are all zero. We just bring crap into our systems unnecessarily, which shifts us out of that zero state. But inherently, all of us are zero. And when we operate out of zero, everything is available to us. Nothing is hidden. Okay. We may think that we can hide things, but nothing is hidden. And this again, I can tell you from experience. We cannot hide anything. If the person has the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the smell to smell, the taste to taste, they can taste and smell and hear and feel everything. You cannot hide anything.
So, you are created in the image of the divine. That means you were created void on one side of the coin and infinite. As soon as you are willing to let go of trash and be empty, then immediately what happens is inspiration fills your being, and now you are home free. You don't even have to know what you are home free, because most of the time you won't know. Where is it? Where is it? I've been clean. Come on, tell me where it is. I'll work more. Most of the time, you won't know.
So again, what is he saying here clearly? That once you connect into that void, once you become that void, then everything is in you and nothing is away from you. But to be able to access that void, first you need to empty yourself of all the crap, all the stuff that is in you, which is irrelevant and not necessary anymore. So basically, what he's saying here is you need to get rid of all the memory that you're carrying around. But now that memory is anywhere available in the void. So you're really not losing anything. Our ego wants to hold on to stuff because it gets its power from that memory. Now, suppose you had no memory of who you were, what you were, right? Now, where would you be? Would you have any ego? You would not have any ego if you didn't have memory about who you were and what you were. So once you clear the memory, you can connect totally with that inspiration, with that divine consciousness, and then start becoming an instrument of that divine consciousness. And then everything will happen. And you won't even know how it is happening, why it is happening, where you are, but everything will be happening. Okay, this is really profound, this what he's saying. So I think we can stop here today.